Well, this should come as no surprise. Kanye's on an apology tour for his anti-Semitic views. And this is something that you could have seen coming a mile away, especially because during the Jesus is King tour, he was apologizing for things that he was saying at the time, especially for his politics, which were incredibly divisive. Now, with Kanye, up until Donda, it was very easy to justify still being a fan. He was putting out good music. He was, at least a married man and a family man, and at least trying his best to be some sort of upstanding citizen. Now, after Donda 2, it became very apparent that, everybody that's an artist has some sort of bad album in their discography. And Kanye maybe had hit his slump, right? He had been struggling to make music for a long time. Even he himself said with meds, he couldn't make the same music that he used to be making. He had lost his edge, and that was very clear. And it's been very clear for the past 5 years how much of an edge he had lost. I was a huge fan of Kanye up to Donda. The thing is that, and this may sound completely separate from what we're talking about, but it has something to do with it. About 4 years ago, I sold my CD collection. They were just taking up space, didn't have a lot of room for my CDs. And in that CD collection, amongst all my Wu-Tang albums, amongst all my other hip-hop albums, and, Radiohead and Sonic Youth and all the stuff that I listened to from the time I was 16 up, right? Mostly hip-hop. But Kanye West had a big part in my CD collection. I had every album. I even had late orchestration, which, maybe some people would say probably shouldn't have sold that, but, that's a different conversation. I regretted selling almost every one of those CDs because they had a big part of my youth. But the collection of CDs that I don't really have an affinity for at this point in time are the Kanye CDs. And I know that saying, when shit hits the fan, are you really a fan? And I guess I'm not. I guess I'm not anymore. I guess I can't forgive that easy. And now that Kanye's going on this apology tour, which is completely bizarre to me because he's asking God for forgiveness on Twitter, which is asinine to me, because if you're asking God for forgiveness, that's a personal relationship with God. This man is publicly broadcasting his relationship with God and hoping that the world sees it, hoping that the world sees that he's asking for forgiveness, that he has some sort of remorse for it, and hoping that the fan base he knows he's lost comes back. And this is the point in time where former fans of Kanye, the people that, like myself, were fans of his music and fans of his persona, have to take a stand and say, you know what? I don't have to fall for that. And I think what was really an eye-opener for me was that as I started going further into my 30s, I'm 36 now, Kanye's problems were so benign to my lifestyle that it became hard for me to root for him in the same way that I was rooting for him when he was doing Yeezus. To me, it's like, just make the art. Why do I have to invest in your life and root for the mistakes you're making as a man and as a father and as a husband so that I can enjoy your music? Not only do you have me standing in line trying to buy some Yeezys, because that was me about 5-6 years ago. I wasn't able to get the ones I wanted. That has nothing to do with me not being a fan. I was still a fan up to Donda, mind you. But not only did he have me standing in line trying to buy some Yeezys and failing at that, but you want me to invest in your mistakes? That's on top of the fact that you're now, making anti-Semitic songs, on top of the fact that you're going on these Twitter tirades and, just being an absolute fool. And to me, if he's going to ask for forgiveness from God, he needs to do that on his own accord. He shouldn't be broadcasting it on Twitter. It makes zero sense to broadcast it on Twitter. I hope that God speaks to him. I hope that he comes to him in the middle of the day while he's standing out in a field, perhaps his abandoned estate in Wyoming, and tells him, I will forgive you, but you have to go away from the public. Because I think that's the only way for Kanye to go. I don't think that he's ever going to have the appeal with the youth in the same way. I think he's aged out of that. I don't think that, all of a sudden 16-year-olds are going to start loving him in the same way that they did 8 years ago. I don't know. Things are very foolish these days. I could be 1,000% wrong. Kanye had a chokehold on, the 14 to 35-year-old demographic for a good portion of time, from the life of Pablo on through Donda. That's why a lot of fans started aging into his music, and that's why a lot of fans are struggling who came into his music around the time of Donda, or maybe even Jesus is King. A lot of fans are struggling to say, I don't like this man anymore. But it became very hard for people who invested in, again, Kanye, to enjoy that music. And again, it really just boils down to the fact that you really just have to take a stand and say, you know what, I'm just done with this man. I can't. I don't have time for him. Again, I'm already 30. I'm going on 37 this year. I don't have time for him to be begging on Twitter because he's no longer a part of his family, because he's lost, touch with, his kids, and complaining about the Kardashians, who, all right, they got their own set of problems, but, Kim's out here trying to become a lawyer, and has succeeded in doing so at this point. Kanye's out here, walking around with a nude model who I thought he divorced, but somehow I'm supposed to be invested in that. I'm done. I'm done. And I think fans should be too. I don't know if fans should really buy into this apology. He's got to be hurting somewhere. And you can only be the villain for so long before you realize that you no longer have the mind share of the public the way you used to. And I think Kanye's realized he doesn't have the mind share of the public the way he used to. There's nobody really enjoying Kanye's music the way they used to. Yes, there's people on the Hollywood Walk of Fame rapping his anti-Semitic song, but I don't think those people make up the majority of society. There's people with real lives out here, clearly hate-fueled. Let him fuck up. That's his own life. That's all I got on Kanye. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and bye.